I've shared that when I was in high school, my introduction to Buddhism was basically you need to let go of your attachments and not be caught in desire. And I thought that meant that desire was bad. And it was quite a number of years till I came back around to Buddhism. But it was a misunderstanding. And it's one that I see in a lot of people, because the teachings are not that desire is bad. In fact, desire goes hand in hand with existing. There's no existence without desire. You wouldn't be here if it weren't for desire, really. And filling desire can be temporarily pleasant, and not having it filled can be temporarily unpleasant, but it's being caught that's the suffering. Okay? It's the caught part of it. It's where there's a hook, where and we're going to look in our lives where we have that hook, where there's a sense of, I have to have this to be happy. I have to have this to feel okay. If life doesn't cooperate in this way, it's really not okay. Okay? And so the first question to ask is, well, what actually is desire? Because it's considered this universal energy that all life desires to exist, to flourish. And I remember some years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I read a really interesting article in the New York Times Science section that described how a mathematically perfectly balanced universe couldn't exist. In other words, if matter and antimatter were exactly equal, they'd cancel each other out. Okay? But and there was one of those demonstrations in the FEMI National Accelerator Lab where they created a little mini universe and show what happened right after the Big Bang. And they show in collisions that there is a slight bias of certain elements in the electron to its charged opposite. So there's this cosmically minuscular leaning towards attraction, so that rather than canceling each other out, existence happens. Now, my understanding doesn't go any deeper than that. But it's, to me, what the intuition is that formless being wants to manifest. It's like the ocean wants to have waves, and that the ocean knows itself through the appearance of waves. That's my favorite way of describing it to myself, that it's an integral part of this whole universe, that we awaken through perceiving, form, then the ocean perceives itself through the waves. We perceive what we are, this awareness and love through forms. So it's an organizing principle. And desire takes on different dimensions of aliveness. It takes on the dimension of the desire for food, to connect with food in the material plane, to be alive, and sex, and self-esteem, and feeling safe, and feeling bonded, and self-realization, and awareness itself. There are different dimensions of desire, what we yearn for. So what turns desire into attachment? In other words, where do we get some hooks and stickiness in here? The Latin word for desire is desiderare, and it means away from your star. So when there's desire, there's some sense of being away from home and a longing for homecoming. And that feels kind of intuitively true. That I think of it that our star is the energetic source of our being, the awareness that's the source of our being. And we have a longing to come home to our true nature, to really rest in our wholeness. So each dimension of desire, from gross to increasingly subtle they're expressions of aliveness, from the gross to the more and more subtle, from wanting food to wanting the enlightened experience of awareness itself. Now, the hook. If our basic needs are not met, if our basic needs for food, for security, for bonding are not met, then our attention narrows and fixates. Desire becomes fixated. Desire intensifies. And the more unmet needs, the more we get fixated until we call it attachment or addiction. And some examples are this, that they've seen with chimps, that when there's poor bonding, then the young chimp grows up not only to be very aggressive, but to be a binge eater. Okay, just that's what it is. That's the substitute gratification. That's a primitive reward system. And then with fruit flies, and I found this from an article called Sex and Alcohol on a Very Small Scale. Male fruit flies deprived of sex may turn to alcohol as a source of pleasure. They did an experiment where they had two groups of male fruit flies, and one had sex, the other was deprived of sex. It's a cruel, cruel experiment. And the sexually deprived males overwhelmingly selected the boozy brew. They were given to either a normal mush or a boozy mush, and they drank 4 times as much as their sexually satisfied brethren. I love the way they write these articles, but anyway. But you get the idea that, and so you say, okay, so unmet needs. So what are the characteristics of attachment or suffering? And there's a feeling of lack. Something's unmet, that something's missing. Then there is a mental delusion as to what will actually bring satisfaction and happiness. That's where we hook onto substitutes that give temporary relief or pleasure, but don't really solve the problem, okay? And then we grasp. Okay, so there's a feeling of need, a misperception of what's going to work, and then a grasping onto the substitute. Just a comment on this delusion, because it's really a pervasive feature of our psyche that we have ideas about what will bring us happiness, and we're regularly wrong. It's really interesting. Lottery winners are ultimately no happier than non-winners. Everybody at that Sands Casino, it really didn't matter whether they were going to win or lose in terms of their happiness quotient. It's not right away. It takes some months to come back to your happiness set point, as they describe it. Paraplegics are usually as content as people can walk. We anticipate good things happening, like a job offer or a raise, or even having a child will make us happier, and that bad things will make us more miserable. And it's true, we have spikes, but it evens out. Wanting begets wanting is the idea, and the typical metaphor is it's like drinking salt water to satisfy thirst. So that's one level of suffering. We don't get satisfied. The second I alluded to a little bit before, which is that along with the hungry ghost energy of wanting, we have an aversion towards ourselves for that. How many of you have noticed the shame or self-hatred that comes along with the wanting mind? How many of you have noticed that? Okay. It's a little harder to raise your hand for. In the Buddhist tradition, we call it the second arrow. The first arrow is, I want, I need, I'm not satisfied. And the second arrow is, I'm a bad person for wanting and needing and feeling I'm not satisfied. It's the self-aversion we pile on. Very, very notable as part of the addiction cycle. You know, eat too much, feel really, really bad about yourself, feel like such a bad person, and feel so miserable that you eat more, and then feel bad about yourself, and it just keeps fueling the cycle. Okay, so that's one other level of the suffering, is the self-aversion. And then the last level I'll name is when we're at our casino, when we're really waiting to win or wanting to win and not quite there yet, and it might be because we're seeking the approval, or we're trying to in some way get something we don't have, a job or whatever, we're not present. It's kind of like we're leaning forward, wanting the next moment to contain what this moment does not. And this is the heart of the suffering that comes with the hungry ghost, with wanting mind, with addiction, with attachment. That we can't be present. We're on our way somewhere else. And how many moments of our life is there some sense we're on our way to something rather than this moment counts? It's like in this, right now, listening to this talk, are we on our way to the the hub of the talk, or to the end of the talk, or to what we're doing later tonight, or to the weekend, or... It's such a deeply grooved habit to have some discontent and feel something's missing and that we need something more, that we can skim over the surface and not really arrive and take in the sunset, or feel the wind on our cheek, or see the gleam in a child's eyes, or hear the child's laugh. We're not able to connect, be right here, which is ultimately what desire is wanting. It's like we're away from our star. Can we come back? So we can't be happy. And the deep teaching here is that the real way we meet desire, the real way we find happiness, it arises from presence. The only place you can really be happy is when there's an openness and a wakefulness and a tenderness right here. So the pursuit of the hungry ghost actually blocks presence. It blocks us from feeling the light of our own spirit, the light of that star. The word desire, away from our star, the satisfaction of desire is recognizing that our star, the light and love we seek, is here. It's in this moment. And as long as we fixate outside ourselves, we can't experience that. So this is key, that the healing from attachment or addiction is really discovering how to find the spirit that's always been here, but feels like it's been draining out or empty. How to discover that star that's inside us, the light in our own heart. Because when we do, when there's a sense that it's right here, there's still a natural play of desires. And we can enjoy when those particular focused desires are met, and we can not enjoy it when they're not. But there's a basic sense of contentment. There's not craving. I love, there's a cartoon that has a picture of a dog who's having a dream, and it says, "Zen dog dreaming of medium-sized bone."